there folks, Mr. G here with another educational video. Here we're going to be talking about classifying matter. Now we've talked about matter a lot. It's stuff, things that take up space, but we haven't talked so much about different ways that we can classify it. We've talked about some physical properties, chemical properties. This is something a little bit different. Before we get started though, make sure you put the date, November 24th, and this is page number 4 of our notes for this unit so far. You could include some information that you maybe already know about atoms. We're going to be talking a lot about atoms in this lesson. Maybe you want to include things about what makes up an atom. Are there different types of atoms? What makes them different? So starting off, what is an atom made of? What is matter made of? It's made of atoms. It's the smallest particle, and each atom can be considered like a single unit. So for example, this can represent a hydrogen atom. A molecule is where we have 2 or more atoms joined together. And these atoms can have different types or the same types. For instance, we can have 2 hydrogens attached together. This is one hydrogen molecule, H2. This is H2O, so 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen, and this is what water is made of. So in this molecule, this water molecule, we have different types of atoms and different numbers of each type of atom. And this is true for all types of different molecules. So if this is what matter is made of, how do we classify it? We classify it by grouping it according to similar properties. So if this is our main category as matter, there are 2 main categories, mixtures and pure substances. And these pure substances are broken down into elements and compounds. Mixtures, so that's this side over here, are made up of 2 or more different types of molecules. So for instance, if we just have water, that isn't a mixture, but if we had some water and some hydrogen here, so this molecule and this molecule mixed together, that would be a mixture. And a mixture can be separated into its components by a physical change. So for example, we can have salt and water. So salt molecules and water molecules, this is what a salt molecule would look like. This is what a water molecule would look like in terms of a diagram. So if we had salt and water mixed together, that's what we would get. Pure substances are made up of only one type of molecule. So that's this other part of our diagram here. So for example, water, only water molecules. Salt, only salt molecules. Oxygen, only oxygen molecules. That's what makes a pure substance. There's no mixing of the molecules here. Compounds, so that's this part of our pure substances. So once we're in our pure substances, just one type of molecule, we have 2 different subtypes. Compounds are made up of 2 or more different types of atoms. So here we have hydrogen atoms and oxygen atoms. That's a compound. In salts, we have sodium and chlorine atoms. These can be separated into components by chemical changes. So there's different ways that we can do this. For example, water can be separated using something called electrolysis. Basically, you pass electricity through it, and the hydrogen and oxygen molecules will split. So if you remember our picture beforehand, this is what our water molecule looked like, where these were our hydrogens and this was our oxygen. If we apply an electric current, pass some electricity through it, instead of being bonded together, they would be all separate now. Elements, that's the other type of pure substance. They're made up of only one type of atom, and they can be single or joined together. There are 120 elements, and they are listed on the periodic table. Some of you might be familiar with the periodic table. You've probably seen pictures of this, maybe in classrooms or in textbooks. These are a list of all of the elements. And there's about 120 of them. The key thing about elements is they cannot be separated or broken down. We can't pass electricity through it, right? These are just elements, just our atoms. So we can't change them by physical or chemical changes. So for example, helium is one of our elements. Oxygen, it doesn't matter if there's multiple oxygens. The important thing is there's only one type of atom. Unlike our water, where we've got a mix of hydrogens and oxygens, this is just oxygen, even if they're combined together. So let's go through a few examples here, and we'll go through elements, compounds, mixtures, and then look at atoms and molecules. So here we've got what appears to be a mixture. because we've got different types of molecules. When we separate this, are we making new substances? No. All we're doing is separating out the different molecules from each other. We can do this with physical changes, something like evaporation or distillation. So if we had, say this was like salt water, we could separate the salt and the water by evaporating the water, basically by getting the water to turn into gas, and then it would leave the salt behind. Now that we break it down here, these would both be examples of compounds. That's because each of these molecules have different types of atoms. We've got whatever these black circles are and these white circles, and we've got the straight lines and the crossed ones here. These are compounds. If you remember, compounds have two or more different types of atoms. We've got different types here, different types here. And both of these are molecules. Same thing with this up here. So our first one is a mixture made of molecules. These are compounds made of molecules. When we separate these, so when we separate these individual parts, do we get a new substance? Yes. That's because our molecules are now breaking down into atoms. This would be an example of a chemical change like electrolysis. So if these are water molecules, we can run some electricity through them and they can separate into oxygen and hydrogen, if, for example, this is water. Finally, down here, these are examples of both atoms and molecules. But you'll notice that whether they're atoms on their own or molecules attached together, these are all elements because they have the same type of atom and only one type for each of these four different situations. So can these be separated into simpler types of matter? No. These are our elements. These are kind of our building blocks. We can't simplify them any further. That's the end of our video here. Make sure you watch any of the other videos that I've posted, complete the homework, read any textbook pages that I suggested, and look for any other assignments or other things that you have to do on Teams. And I will see you all in the next video.